Now.
Live right now. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Compassionate Connections, hosted by OCD Gamechangers. So, tonight, Sean and I join you for an interview and just kind of looking into the ins and the outs of alcohol and OCD or addiction in OCD. So, welcome. I'm glad you all are joining us. I am Lori Johnson. I am a participant in OCD Gamechangers as well as a clinician in private practice in Denver, Colorado, in focused counseling. Our specialties are within OCD and addiction. And this evening, I have the very best and the one and only Sean Shinnock.
Yay.
I said it right, right?
Sort of. You got closer than most people do. Like
Gosh,
the O sounds like it's Shinnock. Like you're saying it really fast.
Sean
But you got
Shinnock.
close. You got some people just go knock or nork or
I thought
whatever.
I had it
It's been
down. You told
no,
me,
you
like,
were
what's
good.
that thing on your leg? It's a shin. Ick.
If if you wouldn't have even said anything, I would not have even had to it was so close I wouldn't have corrected you. You're good.
Yeah, but
You're good.
I'm that kind of person where if somebody calls me Laurie, I really don't like it. It's Lori.
Yeah. Well, I mean, ask Chrissy. She's been calling me knock or whatever Chrissy calls me for the past 4 years. So I'm still trying to work on her. Maybe I should get on her a
It
little bit more
says
for that.
Chinook, like the airplane, kind
She
of.
does say Chinook. She
Chinook.
does say Chinook. That's right. It's Chinook. Yep. You're absolutely right. I hope she's listening to this right now.
Well, thank you for joining me, Sean. I'm really glad to be here with you tonight. You were the first person I met when Game Changers first started, so I'm
That's
happy to be
right.
here with
Way
you.
back when? 2017, I think, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
2017. So tell
Yep.
us a little bit about yourself.
So my name's Sean. Last name is Shinnock.
Shinnock.
See, I got it right. I got it right. So I'm an artist, advocate. I work in mental health field. I illustrate books. I am building some projects. I try to be a speaker when I can, and I try to give back when I can. So I'm kind of all over the place. I'm in Ohio right now. This is my childhood home where a lot of big OCD watershed moments that were horrible in my life happened in this house and in this room. I'm from Boston. Well, I'm from here, but I live in Boston. I'm back because my brother just had a baby, and I am an uncle for the very first time, Griffin Barker Shinnock, and I'm going to be the best funkle ever. And I'm going to teach him how to shoot a jump shot. I'm going to let him listen to Pink Floyd and Jimi Hendrix, and I'm going to be like the coolest guy in the world. This little flesh baby thing. So
This flesh
exciting
baby
stuff.
thing. Oh,
That's what it is. It's like this little fleshy, smooth, warm little sweet potato or like
it is like
cantaloupe
a little sweet
thing, and
potato.
it's like just looks at you. And I was holding him for the first time the other day, and I think it was Friday, and I held him in my arms, and he was asleep, and I kind of forgot that I had a little like a human being in my arms. I was like looking up. I was about ready to go get like another soda, and I'm like, oh, I have a human life in my arms. It's very, very strange and surreal, but like it like also beautiful, and all the things all wrapped in one. It's been a neat experience.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Is this your
Yeah.
first nephew or
First
first
nephew.
nephew? Okay,
First
awesome.
nephew. First
Congratulations.
grandkid for my dad, and
Mhm.
maybe I'll be producing some kids sometime. I don't know, but for right now, this is the only one.
Well, right now, everyone that's tuning in, you're talking to two grown adults with no children. So this is a really great descriptor that we're using for babies is like a warm little sweet potato human baby. And
Yeah.
it's I think for me, I use those terms because I don't have any kids. Hi, Michael. Welcome to tuning in.
Yeah. I want to just pinch his little sweet potato cheeks.
I know
Me, me,
little
me, me, me,
sweet
me.
potato babies. Well,
Yeah, yeah.
congratulations, Sean. That's such an amazing experience. You have big
Yeah.
hopes and dreams for
Oh
the way
yeah.
that you're going to be a funkle.
Mhm.
I love it.
It'll be
Oh,
good. It'll be a good experience.
well, welcome. Yeah. So, did you go back to Ohio to kind of visit family and welcome the arrival of Griffin?
Yeah, drove back October 29th. Her due date was November 7th. So, there's a kind of a 2-week window before and after that first due date, I hear. So I wanted to get back in time just in case she was early and just be there and be supportive and do whatever I could. Because I've never been in the same city as one of I've had a lot of very, very close friends of mine have their kids. Like I've got a couple goddaughters and godsons, and I've never been in the exact same family where I could support them and like go over and like bring over diapers or bring over food. And this time around, I was like, there's no way in hell I am missing my brother's birth of my brother's baby. And it
Yeah.
worked, and it ended up being great because I came back. They have a dog. They needed to go to the hospital. She was late. She went. She needed to be induced and went into C-section. So they were in the hospital for 4 days. So my contribution initially, besides my undying love for the family, is I watched the house for 4 days and their dog. So they were stress free. They were really thankful that they didn't have to worry about the house being alone and the dog, boarding the dog and all that stuff like that. So I came back and I helped out, and that's what I wanted to do. And
That's
I'm
all.
here, and now I'm talking to you and
Yeah,
whoever is
right
listening. I
now
can't tell who's listening, but I hope you get something out of this today.
well, right now we have joining us as far as who commented, Margaret Sisson and Michael Schramm. So we have at
Hey,
least
Margaret.
two
Hey,
people
Michael.
who commented.
Yeah, that's
I wonder, Sean, like sometimes people have like a ton of bad, memories or like really OCD. You were saying like being home in your playroom,
mhm,
like video games and all this stuff, like
mhm.
that sometimes that can be a trigger and people avoid it. Like, how is it for you being here kind of full circle in,
It's yeah,
advocacy for other people with OCD, like from a place
yeah.
where things kind of started?
It's actually there's a lot of emotions wrapped up in that. That's a great question. I'm glad you asked it because
It's not a
this
simple
is
one.
actually you was that?
It's not a simple one.
No, no. So I first started getting treatment when I was 32, about 8-9 years ago, and that's when I originally went to Boston and went away from this house for the first time. And
Mhm.
when I came back from that first 90-day, I think it was like 90-day or uh, 12, 13-week experience, that was when I came back to this house for the first time. That was challenging. That was tough because when you're away doing treatment, I've done outpatient and residential. It's hard to recreate triggers inside the office, or if you're in an entirely different state, you're trying to do exposures and stuff like that, and you're outside the office, but you can't go back to the bedroom where the first panic attack and that intrusive thought that got you for the first time was. So when I
Yeah,
came back here the first time about 8 years ago, it was really, really tough. I had to do exposure by myself all over again for the first time, really by myself, in different places where I had massive emotional breakdowns and panic attacks induced by intrusive thoughts and obsessive compulsive disorder. And um, I did great. Like it was good. I was able to sleep in my old bedroom, which I was agoraphobic of. I didn't go in that bedroom for a long time. Now I get to
mhm,
go back in there. This room has its own history as well. Like for some reason, I had a massive panic attack. I was watching a movie that triggered some sort of like harm OCD, intrusive thought in me, and I
mhm.
had the light up here on, and it's the same light. It's the same temperature light. It's the same brightness. Like it's the exact same feeling that you have. Like it's a very that nostalgic feeling, but in a very cold, scary way.
Yeah,
And I was messing with the lights, getting ready for this, and I had turned that on actually, and it actually gave me anxiety turning it on. I'm like, you know, we're going into some waters here. So being back here, it it it's 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 it just shows me how much I've grown and how far I've come from where I was.
Yeah.
And also the fact that the same place that I can talk about my journey, possibly help some other people just by connection or feeling like they're not alone from the same damn place where it all started. That's pretty awesome. So that was a long-winded answer, but
No, I think
this house has a lot. This has 35 years worth of memories. A lot of it good. A lot of it was I thought I was a psychopath and I was going insane. And I had some very scary moments in this house. And I know that the topic today is alcohol. There's a lot of partying and alcohol use here as well. So there's a lot of stories in this house. I'm sure my dad doesn't know all of them. So maybe hopefully he's not listening.
is he tuning in this evening? Because we won't wanna reveal
No, it's
any
all out in the air. He knows everything. It's good. I'll say whatever. He's good. We're good.
Well, thank you for that insight. I know our topic tonight is like the compassionate connection overlap in OCD and alcohol or
Mhm,
drugs, whatever that might be. But I think as I see you, I know where you are, and we were talking about that before logging on, and it's just,
mhm.
I think sometimes full circle, people need to hear how triggering that can be, and also how humbling as it was, whatever helped you get through like the moment you turn that light on and getting
Yeah.
ready for our conversation today and just being like,
Mm,
oh, interesting. It's just kind of that quick blip instead of something that's going to completely derail you all the time.
100%. Isn't that cool? To
Yeah,
be in a place where you're paralyzed and you're a clinician. You've seen, I'm sure your fair case of very, very, very severe cases. And
sure.
I hate to use the word paralyzed because I wasn't paralyzed, but I couldn't move. I didn't move my arms. I didn't move out of my seat because everything initiated some sort of trigger or initiated some sort of compulsion or ritual. And for a while I was stuck in this room and I peed in coffee mugs and stuff like that so I didn't have to walk 10 feet to the toilet. So to be able to come back here and use the toilet, it's awesome. It's good.
It is. It's amazing. It's full circle. So thank
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
sharing that insight. I think it's an important part that, even as a clinician, sometimes we don't talk about those pieces. We kind of focus on like how you can get better and the recovery elements, but
Mhm.
sometimes kind of peeling back the curtain. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Of
Yeah.
course. Of course.
Well, I'm curious. I know some of your story, and I'm sure that our listeners are curious too, kind of where your journey began with drinking. Like, was it,
Yeah.
early introduction, just kind of social settings, or did it kind of occur after the onset of OCD symptoms?
So looking back, really the onset of my symptoms happened or started when I was 8 or 9 or 10. I can look back and see like that was the start. They got really, really bad in middle school and they just escalated from there up until high school. So, really, for about 10 years before I touched anything, I was really, really in a lot of pain and struggling. So, I didn't start drinking until I was 18 years old. I was super I was in the middle of the road. I was kind of an ambivert. I had some extroversion going on. Like I was outgoing. I tried to be social. Then I was reserved. With my anxiety and stuff like that. I wasn't. I. I don't. Maybe this has changed, but back in the '90s, all the cool kids were kind of the kids who were partying and drinking and stuff like that. I wasn't part of that crowd. I wasn't really accepted in that crowd, so I wasn't introduced to any kind of like real serious partying until after I graduated high school, after I had been suffering and struggling for about 9 or 10 years.
Mhm.
It wasn't until I went to a party when I was like 18 years old, summer after senior year, that I had a few beers. I'm like, whoa, wait a second. This feels pretty good. I didn't have any. I know there's a lot of a lot of people that I know of that have OC, there's some fear of drinking because they have this fear of losing control. They
Yeah.
don't want to drink alcohol. They don't want to lose control. I was the opposite. I wanted to get out of this rigid robot, like sheltered shell of Sean, and kind of let loose. And I had a few beers, and I felt, for lack of better words, I felt normal. I felt really, really normal. That's
Mhm.
kind of rough thing to say, to have to have a few beers in you to feel normal
Yeah.
again. And I felt goofy, I felt funny, I felt like people wanted to be around me. Um and it felt good, and I wanted to do it again, and I didn't want it to stop because I didn't know how to make the other shit stop. I didn't know it was OCD. Like for anybody who's listening or doesn't know my story, I wasn't diagnosed with OCD until I was 32. So I didn't know what the heck was going on with me. I just knew that I didn't know how to make that stop, and it was really, really painful. But I knew how to make alcohol go,
Yeah.
and that's what I ended up going to, and I wanted to recreate that feeling as much as possible, and so that really started when I was 18, right out of high school.
Yeah. How do you think, that kind of allowed you to blend in with everybody maybe, or just, like, kind of feel that freedom? Like, was it really easy? Was it hard to get a hold of at the time and just kind of, like, seek out that relief? Because when we're teenagers, like, we
Yeah,
everything happens differently, in different
yeah,
people's lives, and, like, how easy
exactly.
was it for you to seek that relief, basically? Like, the road was paved versus you had to figure out where to get it again.
The road was pretty much paved for me. Are you talking about in terms of accessing and acquiring
Yeah,
beer at underage and stuff like that?
yeah,
Oh yeah,
like,
that so that was
I know there's
that
gonna
that
be a
road
party.
was yeah,
Yeah,
that road was absolutely paved for me, 100%. It was really, really stupidly easy. And uh, from my friends, so I had gone from kind of the shy kid to now being accepted into the groups that I had told you about earlier. And now I had played football my senior year and played basketball, and that's a whole other story with OCD. But it has to do with alcohol, to be honest with you. We can get to that later. Um, but I was starting to be accepted more by these social groups that were doing more of the partying, and all of them had some sort of access to beer, or they all had some sort of access to a house with a keg, or the jobs that I had at the time were not a bartender, but bar back, server, in environments where there was a lot of drinking going on, a lot of drinking afterwards, a lot of coworkers that were over 21, a lot of friends with older siblings that were 21. I mean, it got to, I was working, I don't know where everybody else lives, but here in Ohio, we have drive through beer and liquor marts where you drive in with your car and they load up your trunk with
we
beer
had
and
that
liquor.
too. Yeah.
Yeah. I worked at one of those, and they would let me just buy beer and take beer as a 19-year-old dude shoving beer in the back of people's cars. I was taking beer too. So it was really, really paved. And all my social, outside of athletics, most of my social experiences from 18 on were based around some sort of drinking.
Mhm.
So I didn't really have to worry. The only thing that I worried about at the time was getting into bars that I wanted to. And even at that time, I went through like a million different efforts to have fake IDs and stuff. It was back in the day where like you could actually make a fake ID and print it out and put it over your
Yeah,
old
you could get it
ID
online.
and something. Exactly.
Yeah,
So I had a
you
fake
printed
ID.
it
Like,
out,
I
laminated
went through
it.
all different efforts. So it was very, I had a lot of access to booze for sure, both in my peer groups and work. So really easy for me to access.
Yeah, and just to like, you knew relief was maybe coming around the corner sometime, and I think, like, when we're teenagers or when things are going on, you don't know what you don't know,
Nope.
and it was just fun, right? And it was a relief and a reprieve.
It started off innocent enough. It really did. I didn't start drinking because I was, I was just there and it was available. So that's how it started. I didn't have the thought that I need to have this pain go away, and that's why I grabbed it. It was just I was at a party and it's what other people were doing.
Yeah,
It was after that I noticed that, like, I started to feel better,
yeah.
or the pain was I had some relief from the pain.
Mhm.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I know you were trying to get
No,
to
you
a
didn't interrupt
question
me. No
earlier.
way. No. Um, so I'm curious, like, about, like, during that time. So you said you played sports and,
Mhm,
like, football and basketball, and you're also a creative, like, with all the cool stuff that you do with Draw Your
mhm.
Monster. Like, how did kind of your creativity and sports fall into, like, the things you were doing at that time? Maybe even to cope or maybe not to cope.
They they didn't. They didn't. They didn't play a role. So here's why. So right about 14 or 15, I was still doing artwork. Like I was creative. I drew and sold comics up until I was like 14 years old. Played basketball, and right about 14, 15, no, scratch that. Really 7th or 8th grade, that's when the artwork and really education and schooling
Mhm.
in the context of me really, really suffered. Really went away. The sports at the time was a definite relief. Like it was a very healthy, natural relief. I really enjoyed. So I played soccer. I played a little bit of football when I was young, but really it was soccer and basketball. And then when I hit high school, it was basketball. And what what had happened in the first 2 years of my high school career was basketball was my relief. It was my 2 hours of what I like to say kind of mindful mindlessness, where
Yep.
it's, you're in the present moment, so you stop thinking about things. So you feel mindless, like not in a irresponsible way, but in a way that, like, everything goes away and all
Yeah.
you see is the basket and all you see is your shot going in. And for 2 hours, that was my relief. I was like, I lived for basketball. I made the basketball team and everything. But along with artwork, which stopped because I wasn't able to literally draw anymore. I couldn't put pencil to pen. Like, if I touched the paper a certain way, I had to restart and restart, 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 restart. So I was like, all right, that's out the door. Not doing that anymore.
No more pencil to paper. We're done.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
same thing with math. Same thing with a lot of things that dealt with writing. I couldn't go home and do the homework. I couldn't do it. I was smart. I couldn't get things done. And so that eventually led to me being ineligible to play basketball my senior year of basketball. So art went away, education, grades went away, and athletics went away. And from about 12 to 18, I didn't accomplish anything. I was I was a failure because of OCD. It was creating nothing but stress and failure and frustration and sadness and whatever. So I
Mhm.
didn't have any kind of accomplishments or confidence at all. Nothing. There was nothing that I was doing at the time that was giving me any kind of feedback that I was doing well at something. So when I started drinking when I was 18 or 19, I started to get some sort of feedback that I was all of a sudden enjoyable to be around, or I was funny, or I had some sort
Mhm.
of sense of purpose. Because I hadn't had that for 8 years. I
Yeah.
felt lost and I felt like an outsider. And when I started drinking, that whole social situation, the way that OCD kind of made me feel like the intrusive thoughts weren't as bad. I didn't engage in compulsive behavior like I had. That all, like I said earlier, made me feel really normal. And I felt like kind of a normal human again. And the confidence that I didn't have felt like it came back temporarily while I was drinking and kind of letting loose and letting go and not so bound by the shackles of OCD. And because of that, I just built upon that 18, 19, 20, and it just snowballed and got worse and got worse. I just it's really, I hate to use words like pathetic and sad and pitiful and stuff like that, but really, um, in the context of alcohol and OCD, that the drinking, the social, what it made me feel, gave me a sense of purpose, and oddly enough, it gave me a sense of hope, and hope, and it was hope, and not the good sense. It gave me when, and let me explain. When I'll give you a comparison. So when I was suicidal, when I was having suicidal ideations, when I was really, really, really bad, um, thinking about, and just the thought of thinking about it and ending pain kind of boosted my mood temporarily.
Yeah.
Like it does sometimes. Like I know that happens because it gives the person a sense that things are going to
Oh,
go away. So there's
yeah.
some sort of hope that there's a release of pain. And I know that happens with people who have suicide ideation. Happened with me with alcohol as well. It gave me a sense of hope because now I was looking forward to the next weekend. But that's all I was looking forward to. I wasn't building a life. I wasn't looking forward to building a career. I wasn't looking forward to being an artist. I was looking forward to just escaping again. But it was, in its own little small little way, a small little sense of hope. Kind of, there's got to be a different term for it, but it was kind of like this insidious manipulative thing. This like little toxin in the water that I'm drinking that just gives me enough to go back to it, and it's just kind of bad. And that's what was happening. I was going back for this really, really quick temporary fix
Yeah.
because as far as I'm concerned, I wasn't able to fix me. So if I can have something else to help with that and make me forget that for like a little bit, I was like, I'm good. All right, if that's what I got to do to live this life for a little while and whatever, then that's what I'm going to do. And a little while turned into a decade and a half.
I think that there's some elements around, well, we know there are some elements around kind of stigma of like drugs and alcohol and in how people utilize to cope and kind of this, I don't know, I'm just going to say God complex for now of thinking that'll
Mhm.
never happen to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But sometimes it's just the escape of that like little piece of hope from 1 week to the next, or 1 month to the next. And
It
then
actually kept me going.
we don't realize how much time
Yeah.
passes and
Yeah.
how that might get in the way or not get in the way.
Yeah.
And it just, sometimes time
Mhm.
just moves really quickly.
And it only compounded. It only like kind of built on itself because at 20, 21, 22, 23, everybody's doing that. But
Yeah.
then people are graduating college and people are getting careers. People are starting to date and have real relationships. People are starting to maybe get into a really deep connection, intimacy relationship that you know turns into whatever it might, a lifelong situation, marriage, whatever you want to call it. And I I stayed still, stayed put. Like
Mhm.
everybody started to pass me, and that just made me want to escape even more. A lot of existential OCD started to come in. A lot of things about who I was as a person started to creep in. So a lot of my OCD was about initial harm and fear of hurting my family members or me getting hurt and all this other stuff. But it slowly transformed into kind of this who am I as a person, as
Mhm.
people are starting to find their identity as an adult. Well, I'm stuck as an 18-year-old boy in a 27-year-old body, blacking out, having horrible intrusive thoughts that I'm like the sociopath, And so all this existential stuff came in and just exacerbated a lot of it. And again, because I didn't have any therapy that was working for me. And because I didn't have any outlets at the time that weren't socially drinking based,
Mhm.
that's what I went to help get by, was that next 3 or 4 night stint, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Thursday or Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and of course, where did I end up working? I ended up being a bartender and managing a golf club where alcohol flowed
Mhm.
like a magic waterfall. It was just everywhere, and it was also the party. It was the scene and the culture, and you were stressed out while you did your shift, and the last thing you wanted to do is sit down after a long shift from 4 o'clock in the afternoon to 2 o'clock at night or 1 o'clock at
Mhm.
night. Inertia kept you going, and you wanted to release all the stress. So I had stress from OCD. I had stress from my life that was not happening. I had stress from work. So yeah, what am I going to go home and read? Nope.
Right?
No,
I don't want
where's that Jack and Coke, man? Give me that Jack and Coke. So
So you flew under the radar
big
for
time. Yeah.
for really all the people around you. Is that kind of accurate?
I Yeah, well,
Like in your class, right? Like
close
maybe people
people,
didn't know how bad it was.
yeah. I was really good at masking it at work. I was really good at masking it in small little windows of time. Like
Okay.
really, really good. Now, my closest friends could tell something that was wrong because they were the people they were waiting in my driveway for an hour and a half for me to put on my pair of pants.
Yeah.
Or my best friends were the people who were seeing me before I started drinking, like doing kind of I don't know, maybe you can help with this kind of eye compulsions or eye ticking, where if like I closed my eye on the left one, it didn't feel right, so I had to bounce it out on the right, so I would tick my
Yeah.
eyes like this all the time.
Like the
Or it was
just
some
right OCD has to
yeah, yeah, or there's some sort of release or tension,
be
and in a
sensory
compulsory
motor.
way. Yeah, motor. I had to do a lot of motor ticking, a lot of vocalizations. So those happened a lot around the people I was closest with. So close friends, family, they heard and saw, they didn't know what was going on, but they definitely saw it and knew about it. Um, when I went to the bars and was social or working for the most part, I could kind of quell that and keep it pretty secret. I could control it enough to where you hide compulsions or you do them in the back or this and that and the other thing. So, but for the most part, yeah, I was a great actor. Should get an award for my 15 years of service
Exactly.
to
To
the Shinnock Theater
your
Department.
own
Yeah,
actors guild of performance. Absolutely. And I think like the flying under the radar thing is, we all can wear masks in different ways and cover up
yeah,
symptoms. And some of that's necessary, like at work.
yeah,
But then there becomes a time where it has nowhere else to escape to. And I
yeah,
think that's maybe sometimes with younger people, they feel like they can keep covering it up and covering it up. "Well, I'll just do it here.
yeah,
I'll hide in my bedroom. I'll won't do that around my family." And it becomes this isolative world where you feel so alone because
absolutely. Yeah,
it's
yeah,
every little part of you or every new compulsion that comes, you have to hide.
yeah. Yeah, it's interesting you brought up the alone part. It's quite an interesting feeling to feel surrounded by people, but feeling completely isolated and alone inside.
Yeah.
Kind of like this walking paradoxical feeling, this dissonance that's going on inside with outside, and I felt like that a lot. Where
And in these moments where you're partying and drinking and fun as well.
yeah, yeah, yep, absolutely, absolutely. And then the emotions would come out after you drink a lot. So that's when a lot of the pent up anger and tension would come out. I was never violent or angry, but I was very much a crying, I love you, man, love you, bro. All this stuff is going on. I hate my life. A lot of those type of feelings ended up coming out because, like, they needed to come out somewhere, somehow. And I was just so, I had this all around me for most of the week. But then after, putting down 12, 15 beers and a couple of shots, that came out, you know?
Yeah. You got a big dopamine dump
Yeah.
and some, lots of stuff that kind of makes all of our filters, remove and go away.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
even some of that rigidity within the OCD is just kind of like, whew, now there's room for all of my feelings.
Yeah, it's interesting you said filters. Like, it's like for me, alcohol was like the original filter. All these social apps and stuff like that have all these, like, these filters in front of your face and make you look like you're 22 years old and make you look fantastic.
Yeah,
That for me, that's what alcohol did for me. It put a filter over my anxiety, my nervousness, my shyness, my lack of confidence,
yeah,
and it showed people someone who was flexible and wanted to dance and could say witty things and felt and seemed like this guy was normal. Like, we don't get what he's doing in his life. He's not doing much, but like when we hang out, he's a lot of fun to be around. So,
absolutely. So coping, with OCD, also kind of maybe some social anxiety and some social elements of feeling kind of free and having people
mhm.
enjoy your company and be around you and get out there on the dance floor, and maybe there
Oh
is no
yeah,
dance floor, but you're still dancing.
yep.
What else do you think it helped you cope with in that time in your life?
That's a great question. I'm looking over here because I wrote down some answers to this question prior, and
I know
I've
you're a
hit.
preparer. I already knew that
Yeah,
you
I
were.
am a preparer.
I love that.
A lot of the things kind of I've brought up already in a little bit in the conversation, but it it helped me cope with, like, this rigidity that I had with things,
Mhm,
this black and white, where it felt like when I was drinking, I felt more in the gray. I felt more flexible. I felt more, um, less bothered by anxiety. In a weird way, I felt, until I didn't. So let me put a caveat. Until I didn't, I felt clear-headed. Like the
mhm,
first 1 or 2, 3, 4 beers before, it really starts to take effect on the brain, I felt clear-headed because my intrusive thoughts weren't bothering me. They weren't as prevalent. They never went away, but they didn't
mhm,
bother me as much. And I wasn't compelled to do these compulsions. Like, I was able to, like, fend them off or not worry about them for a little bit. So I had this kind of, like, kind of this foggy lens kind of cleared, and I felt clear-headed for a little bit. And um that made me feel like, again, I hate to keep going back to this talk of feeling normal, but it made me feel like I could be around other people and be competent in a way, rather than shy and reserved, or um totally dissociating or totally wrapped up in thoughts. Like, I would get stuck for 25 minutes just staring off into the distance, trying in my mind doing mental rituals,
mm,
like
mhm,
like lost. And I would just have to stare. And when I had a few beers or drinks, or when I was socializing, I didn't have that. I was engaged. In a very strange way, I felt more connected to people. I felt, because I dropped the anxiety was dropped, because a lot of, like, the the rigidity, the black and white thinking, a lot of the fear, a lot of the v- the the lack of wanting to be vulnerable kind
mhm,
of dissolved a little bit, and I was able to open up to people. So I felt a lot more connected when I was drinking, because I felt more loose and I felt like my barriers were down.
Mhm.
And in a way, I felt like it was an opening or awakening into who I was really inside. Um, so that helped me kind of cope and continue to make friends and keep friends because I was able to open up a lot when we were hanging out. Usually, at the bar or shooting pool or at a party or whatnot. So, um, yeah, that it for a second, like I mentioned earlier, it gave me confidence. Felt like I could go dance and not care. All these things. So, they were all synthetic. They were all maybe not downright lies because I was in there. That was part of me. But it definitely felt it wasn't like a natural means of expressing myself and being confident in a very healthy way after, you know, kind of someone might do after really being aware of their demons and handling them in a very, very healthy manner via therapy or meditation or whatever people do to get to a place where they're able to unlock some things. The only way that I felt like I was unlocking things in myself was going to the bar, and I hadn't figured out. I didn't have the skills. I didn't know how to do any of the things that my friends were doing outside of the bars. They were, for some reason, they were able to feel. They were able to be clear-headed. They were able to hold jobs. They were able to have relationships with or without drinks, and
Mhm.
I wasn't able to do that. And when I went out, it was kind of that window into that life for a little bit, and it kept me going because I wanted to do it again the next week, and
Yeah.
that kept me going the next week. Again, I didn't have any purpose in life. I wasn't living for like 35-year-old Sean, or I wasn't living for 45-year-old Sean. I was living for like 1 week older Sean, and I got through many, many years that way because I didn't know any other ways. I didn't have the maturation process that a lot of my peers had, or I wasn't challenged in certain ways that OCD didn't uh, infect or affect in some way. So I wasn't able to have a job, be challenged, learn about failure, overcome, and gain confidence in kind of the more healthier way that someone might gain confidence. I wasn't even able to get to that point.
Yeah.
I avoided that stuff.
Yeah, I hear people say sometimes about kind of their years of struggling with OCD or with addiction or both, that these, they're so regretful and shameful, and I should have known, and I'm behind the mark, and now I missed all these like opportunities and milestones.
Yeah.
Um, would you give it up though? Would you
Ask me that again. Yeah. Could you? Yeah. Ask me that question again.
Yeah, like, basically, I would never do it again. I would, in hindsight's always 2020. I would go back and I would do this and this and this instead. And
Hmm.
sometimes people are really, I had to go through that experience to get what I get today. Would you take it back? Would you wish that
Like all
that
the drinking and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Well, it's again, that's a tough question because along with all the problems that alcohol gave me, and in the end, were bigger than any kind of memorable experience that I had. I got in trouble with the law. I've lost jobs, friendships, stuff like that. Um, but it's an interesting question that you asked because I have a lot of great memories as well. I had a lot of great times. I'm not sure that I would have solidified friendships like I did. Um, I mean, if I had to go back and make the decision, um, I probably wouldn't. I you know I probably I probably wouldn't. Sorry, my dad's coming. Um, my dad is walking in. Um, it's tough. I think that I would have liked to enjoy having experiences with my friends, maybe over a couple beers every once in a while, and that was fun. Have a beer for a game, stuff like that. But to the to the amount of booze that I drank to excess for many years, I think it probably caused more harm than it did good. I think
Mhm,
it probably got in the way of me maybe seeking out and finding therapy because I was using that as therapy, and I didn't really want to mess with anything else. That things were going fine, right? I during the week it sucked, but like I had a lot of fun on the weekends. This is a great life,
mhm.
whatever. So I ideally I would have loved to have had access to some sort of treatment when I was younger and bypassed 15 years of binge drinking. I probably would not
Oh, of
want to
course,
do that.
yeah. I'm
Yeah,
not implying
yeah,
that's a better journey,
yeah,
but,
yeah,
sometimes there is regret, and sometimes there is a lot of hope for the invaluable lessons that you gain
yeah,
being a trudge through.
yeah. I agree. I think that to your point, which makes this question again, it's a great question. It's hard. Is I from OCD, from learning how to get into recovery from OCD, from taking a look at my life with alcohol and the way that I use it as an escape. I self medicated. Um, I really went through a lot. So I had to actually learn a lot over the past 10 years, and it
Yeah,
forced me to take a look at things and change things. And I almost think that in a way, I'm kind of glad that I got that kind of over with when I was younger. I know I've had a lot of great therapy, and I've gotten a lot of great experience, a lot of great wisdom, a lot of just a great community right now. I would somehow be nervous that that might have been flipped. Maybe I would have been okay in my 20. I didn't drink, but all of a sudden things hit, and all of a sudden I have an issue in my when I'm older.
mhm.
So I actually learned a lot from those years, especially now as I look back and we talk about things, especially using it as a tool to teach others or to talk to younger generations about therapy options or some some healthier ways of you know responding to issues and problems and finding some coping mechanisms. So that's kind of the idea with advocacy and talking out loud is to take some years that weren't fantastic in many different ways and use them as a learning tool and as a way of learning about myself and what I went through. So yeah, to kind of backtrack and go back to your point, yeah, it would be tough to give those up, even OCD sometimes, because I've
Yeah,
learned so much from that experience. I've learned so much on how to get over it that I feel like I'm probably a healthier person than I would have been had I just had a, you know, I don't know, normal, whatever, traditional life, maybe. I don't know.
there's there's no telling, and that's the thing about the uncertainty. We
That's
don't
the thing.
we don't
You
know
don't you don't know.
what
I
happens.
I I do not know. Do not
Yeah.
know.
How do you feel like, your journey of noticing and kind of making connection with your own relationship with alcohol and kind of getting into therapy, like, what skills along the way help you come to the point of reining in drinking? Because you've talked a lot about in other compassionate connection groups
Mhm.
and how you do that now and how you cope now. Like, where is Sean now, and what had got you here to realize
Well,
that relationship
yeah.
needed to change a bit?
Yeah, it's a few things. One of it is getting to the root of the issue. And a lot of the root of the issue was tackling obsessive compulsive disorder and my depression. And the beginning of that was probably the hardest thing that I had to do, and that was ask for help. I had
You
to get
just
to the point
you
where,
just miss how hard that is.
yeah,
Just
it was
but it's the worst question in the world to have to ask another person.
it's
And no.
incredibly hard. And especially when you don't know, it wasn't like I knew what was going on and I just needed help finding a therapist or something like that.
Yeah.
Before I asked for help from my dad, I was driving around Columbus, Ohio, about ready to commit myself to the hospital. And not just like a hospital, like I was trying to find someone to lock me up, like put me in chains, lock me up, not find a hospital for help, like get me out of the society type thing.
Yeah.
And so the beginning was getting to the root of a lot of the issues, which was OCD, and also getting to the root of really finding purpose and meaning in life again. Because from the age of 14 to about 32, I didn't have any purpose or meaning. I had friendships that were meaningful, and my friends would argue that, you know, I gave them purpose because I ended up keeping my friends, which was nice. But in terms of like doing something bigger than myself in life, starting and trying to obtain goals, having values, even getting closer to, an identity that I felt comfortable with. I
Mhm.
had none of that. There was no horizon for me. I literally I thought that I was going to be either dead, in jail, or locked in a psych ward in my 20s. So I was living for today and getting hammered. After I got therapy, after I started tackling a lot of these really, really, really tough demons and monsters that were just unbearable, uh, I started to be able to do things that I wasn't able to do since I was 14. One of those is draw and do paint and do creative things because all of a sudden I could do this again. I could start holding down a job and I could start saving money financially. I started feeling like competent enough to be able to like have a fun time without getting wasted, or have fun with friends, or dancing by myself without any kind of like drink in my hand. So small little confidence boosting steps that all had to deal with some sort of core value of feeling like I had purpose and meaning and I was worthy of living this life, and that I was moving towards something
Mm.
that wasn't blackness. It wasn't coldness. It wasn't something scary. It was something that was not perfect. It wasn't like this beacon of sunshine and a rainbow over in this green but it
Sometimes people
was
describe
the
it that way. There's this
yes.
miracle, and it doesn't always look
No,
like.
I never wanted that. I just wanted something that I wanted a chance.
Mhm.
And I started to feel that I had a chance. And once I started to feel like I had self-worth, I had some sort of purpose and meaning, and that I had agency. So if that's a big thing, is that I had this newfound agency where I didn't feel like I had any kind of agency while I was drinking. No agency in my life. Um, Once I found that I had agency and I could actually do the things because my OCD was in check, I skyrocketed. And I got
Yeah.
to the point where, I took a look and I was like, listen, I went a long time. I need to take some time off. So I went 4 years sober without drinking anything.
Good for you.
And I learned a lot during those 4 years. And a lot of it had to do with establishing connections, reestablishing relationships, learning how to be aware of and allow in the hard shit that I was escaping, I was trying to run away from. So really, I was running away for most of my life. I was running away from a lot of things. I had to stop running away. I had to start stopping and facing it, and not facing it in the way that I thought I did in my youth or in my 20s, but facing it in a different way that I've been taught in therapy and other things. Um,
Yeah.
so it wasn't, I always wondered, so what was different from me and my friends when I was drinking in my 20s was when I would go out, we would go out to the bars, we would start at like 7 at night, 6 o'clock pregame. I would drink until 4 in the morning because I didn't want that feeling to end. I didn't want that night to end because once that night ended, my nightmare began. And
Mhm.
I was always frustrated that my friends didn't want to do that with me. I was always drinking alone at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Mhm.
But they stopped because they had something bigger to live for. They were thinking about other things. They wanted a life, they had a job, they wanted a family. There were bigger things driving them forward. And I had to find those for me. And once I found those for me, pulling away from that dependency of alcohol was much easier than it would have ever been had I tried to do it in my 20s without any kind of help or direction or meaning in my life.
So what does it look like maybe that first time that you were in a social setting where there was alcohol and you either made the decision or you made the decision not to drink and had to come forth with that information or set a boundary in your own environment? Do you recall what that was like for you in the beginning?
So I want to make sure that I heard the question correctly. The first time I chose a drink, will you say it again? I just want to make sure.
After kind of like after you're in therapy, after you're
Mhm.
really starting to kind of, like, gain this confidence that you're talking about and making decisions, like, not to include alcohol in your life for that 4 years.
Yeah.
After being kind of in a social setting again where alcohol is
Mhm.
present, what was that like for you
Yeah.
to say no
Oh
and
yeah.
put that values decision first for yourself? Because I think a lot of people are
Yeah.
really curious about that.
So yeah. So the disclaimer and the caveat that Lori is everybody's different. Everybody's different in this journey. No matter what the substance that they use.
Mhm.
No
Absolutely.
matter uh, the addiction that they fight or whatever you want to classify it or label it as, everybody's different. So I can only speak for myself. So when I say things, it's Sean Shinnock context, not for anybody else. So someone else might not be able to go into a bar and do it, and that's fine. It's just some people aren't able to do it. um, I was able to. I was able to go to a dance club, a nightclub, and I was just so motivated about other bigger things for once in my life. That was enough for me to be like, no, I'm good. I don't need it tonight. I was also like I was like proactively giving myself these exposures. I wanted to challenge myself because I never challenged myself. Like the alcohol was the easy way out. It lubricated me. Like I was like that
Mhm.
was the easy road. I was intent on taking the hard road or for the first time in my life. And the hard road is going out and dancing, knowing people are watching you and being totally, totally in the know, knowing things are going and having fun anyways. And I tell you what, letting once you cross that threshold, that barrier of not giving a bleep while you're sober and having fun and letting and you finally get to that same place that you got to with drinking without it. It's a great feeling to, like, let loose and be conscious of it at the same time. Like, it's
Totally.
really kind of a and euphoric in a ways. Like, there are ways of feeling naturally euphoric and feeling emotions in a great way that, frankly, one of the really bad byproducts of the substances and booze is it actually numbs a lot of that stuff. ends up numbing a lot of those emotions in the time. And
Yeah, you don't get to
for
choose
once in a
which
life, I was
and which are
Go ahead.
on. You don't get to choose which are numb and which are on. You know,
Exactly. No.
alcohol is a gamble or a drug.
Exactly.
Gamble.
So um, I was feeling things again, and it felt
Mhm.
good, bad and good. I was feeling the bad, but instead of dealing with the bad like I did, I responded differently. And with the good, man, did I appreciate it more. Holy cow! When you start to feel good, and it's not based on some sort of like attachment to something else that helps you to it was a great feeling. It's a good feeling.
Natural endorphins for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
It seems like there was more exposure work for you to do after you did your true OCD exposures, and that was kind of a
Oh, it
reoccurring.
doesn't stop. No,
Well, it doesn't
no, it
stop,
doesn't stop.
I know that, but,
No.
like, getting out there and dancing, and maybe for some people, it's saying no to alcohol and being okay and open with that and teaching their friends, who they are and where their boundary is, and for
Yeah,
you, like, getting out and dancing and still enjoying life and having a purpose for what you're doing. I love dancing,
yeah.
so
Dancing's great.
I can't
I
I'm
want to do
that
more
one
of it.
people get out and go out and dance. So we're
We'll
dancing.
have to. Well, next OCD Game Changers, maybe Chris, you'll let us play some music, and we'll have to all dance. I think we danced like a couple years ago or something like that. So
Well,
that needs
Chrissy
to
loves
happen.
techno music, so I can get down with that too.
Oomph, 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 oomph. All right,
Yeah.
we can figure out the beat.
Yeah. I I feel like you and I are always in like in this deep intimate conversation. I feel like we could talk like forever and I have like a ton
We
more
could, couldn't we?
I would love to interview you again. But like such, such valuable insight about you and kind of like I can see how deep you are and how creative you are and how hard you've had to work to just really like be in your own body and in your own
Yeah,
self and just like true and authentic. And I know that that really shines, unfortunately to everyone listening, I happen to have a, personal relationship and connection with you to be able to see
yeah,
that. Like, it's
yeah. Right.
really cool. And I think that that
Thank
comes out
you.
in the
Thank you.
artwork, with Draw Your Monster, and in all the
Mm,
artwork that you have. So, um, kind of connecting that back to the creativity, I'm sure that, your work with OCD, your commitment to differing your relationship with alcohol and having 4 years of sobriety,
yeah,
completely changed the way you delve yourself into your art too,
yeah.
and allowed you to do
Totally
that for.
different. Yeah, it absolutely did. And thank you for saying all that. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah. We just had conversations in the basement and we talked about Draw Your Monster. Like every time we sit down, it's a minimum of an hour.
Oh yeah, yeah. And we're all over the place. We're deep. We're light. We're goofy. We're fun.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
great. Well, I
yeah. I
so
enjoyed this very
appreciate
much. Yeah,
hearing the insight, and I know that, some of the listeners and viewers, are appreciative of kind of hearing those ways through recovery, because I think sometimes we talk about this big kind of ethereal, ambiguous, abstract ways of like, here's what you gotta do, and with when people are struggling, it's step by step, and sometimes breaking that down and hearing like, "Hey, I
uh,
did go to a club and bars, and I didn't drink,
yeah,
and I had a great time, and I needed to
yeah,
do that."
yeah.
That's okay. To each their own, and I
Each
think
their
it's
own, and there's going to be hiccups. You
mhm,
said take a break. Sometimes you put your foot forward and you break your ankle a little bit, and that's okay. Like there's, what does everybody say? Recovery is not linear, and there's ups and downs, and you might go backwards before you go. You might go backwards a couple steps before you go forward 3 steps, and that's okay. If that's what you got to do, that's what you got to do. But keep working on it.
absolutely. Well, thank you for being here and sharing your journey with me and everyone else who's watching. Um,
Yeah. Thanks for everyone for being here. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, I know that you have a big job ahead of you. I'm sure that baby's sleeping at like 9 o'clock at night, but your new nephew,
Well,
Griffin,
you
congratulations.
would think. You would think my poor brother and his wife, I think they've gotten 3 hours of sleep in the past 2
Oh,
days, so
no.
I'm gonna go give them a relief on Thursday night. I think I'm gonna go buy some Cheesecake Factory, their favorite, and bring it over to them, so,
Yeah, I'm sure that will be a godsend for them.
yeah,
Well, pinch
that'd be
those
good.
little sweet potato cheeks of your new nephew, Griffin, and it
Ah,
was a
sweet
pleasure to
potato
spend
ch
this time with you.
yes, I need to do a drawing of little sweet potato cheeks. Sweet potato
Oh, I
baby
love it.
cheeks.
I can't wait to see
Yeah,
it. Well, thank you
yeah,
for sharing your time with us, Sean. I think we'll probably sign off for the evening. Thanks for everyone who's
yeah.
joining us. We
Thanks,
will
everyone.
do you know the schedule of, Compassionate Connections?
I don't off the top of my head. I know Lauren knows that stuff, like the back of her hand. I
Well,
don't know off the top of my head.
that's
No, there's
okay.
another one. I know they're coming. There's things down the line.
There are
Yep,
more. We
there
have
are
different
more.
things set up, moving forward, and, I'm sure we'll be posting about all of those. Thank you all for joining
Yeah.
us on your
Thank you.
Tuesday evening. Margaret and Michael, if you lasted the whole time, thanks for being here. We miss you
Are
both.
they still here?
I don't
I hope
know.
they are.
They were the only ones who made comments, so I knew they were here. When
Okay.
we're in like this broadcast room, we lose touch with the world.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's just me and you. Like I
It's
don't know
just
if anybody else is out there.
I'm in your playroom, you're in my office at home. It's
That's right. That's right.
yeah. Any projects